on the actual projector thing, and then just hit volume down a bunch behind the map. All the way. That should be fine.
Alright, I'll give you guys a few minutes just to go grab the VM from the IA lab, so nothing crazy right now. They should already have it, right?
I didn't change that.
Does everyone have the VM that was pushed out, or anyone still getting it? Okay.
Q, there's also the laptop to your left that has a live stream chat and the questions in case people put stuff in there. You named the VM Kyle is nice. You just saw well, I just it's already added, just power it on.
Okay. So who hasn't found it yet? Okay. Yeah, it's a big amount.
Okay.
So can you pull up all templates at all when you're up there in the
There's a
island?
video in the OffSec channel that goes through how to add the VM, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So you can watch that.
If you're in the Flash interface, you just click Add VM from Catalog, and then it's the second one on Q's screen right there, where it says OffSec Intro to Offensive Tools.
Why is the projector freezing?
I don't know. I thought that was me losing my mind, but
Why is the projector freaking out a little bit?
can you guys still find it?
Or no? Does anybody need help on? Okay, I got you.
What? I don't know what's happening. It's just like jiggling.
Well, that was loud.
Yeah, I hate this.
Should be all good. And then flip back to the slides. Yeah, you all.
Very strange. I forgot about that.
Good? Okay. While you guys are setting that up, we just have a quick link. If you have any questions you didn't want to ask in person or something that comes up, you can just shoot us some questions there. Yeah, nothing too formal, just if you come across any questions. So
You're probably good to just
just getting through it. Okay, so we have the Cyber Conquests coming up in about 2 weeks. If you haven't signed up for that, go sign up for it. It should be pretty fun. I know last year when we first ran it, it was really fun going against your friends and professors. So if you want to sign up for that, it's basically a red versus blue mix together. So you're attacking and defending at the same time, which is interesting as far as I remember getting your environment set up to defend it while also taking the time to attack from the same machines. I'm not sure how it's set up. Is it set up the same way? Okay. Yeah, so attacking and defending. If you're new to all this type of stuff, there is a different pool. So there's beginners and then the rest. So mainly freshmen or people that are just getting introduced to this type of stuff. There are 2 pools for the competition. So don't feel overwhelmed, or if you want to go learn for the first time. This is the main link for seeing how it's set up and any rules and stuff like that, the team stuff. So if you want to visit that and then sign up if you haven't done so. If you paid your dues, there should be food. Not sure how they're going to handle that if you haven't paid your dues. But are we doing this straight, Mike? Oh, he does. Okay, so are we just doing if you haven't paid your dues, you can't do it anymore?
Everyone here should sign up because it's a really good time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and go to DevSec because we're kind of working hand in hand with them this year. So if you have trouble with anything or want to learn something new, they're definitely covering some interesting things. So there's that. And we have another CTF coming up this weekend. Did anybody participate in the one this past weekend? Maybe there's a few, but okay. Yeah, we're hoping to get more people involved in the CTFs, especially me. But so we have 2 teams coming up for this next weekend. We have a grad team and an undergrad team. From what I remember, is it grad can't get any prizes, right? It's kind of the traditional. Yeah.
Right, so this one, this weekend is quals for CSA. The only undergrads can get to finals. Finals are actually on site in NY or at NYU. So we're splitting up the teams. So for all the undergrads, you'll play on the regular kernel popper scene. For your graduate students, we'll split off and play by ourselves, basically.
Yeah.
So that if the undergrads do win or do make it to qualifying, they can actually go.
Okay. Are they ending that on Sunday or Monday morning?
Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon. Okay. Yeah. So if you haven't done so, sign up. They're pretty fun. You know, meet up with people and work on it. So you can do that. But yeah. And if you haven't joined the Slack channel, CTF is always busy. OffSec not so much. But did anybody want to talk about anything they saw? It's kind of just an open-ended thing from the CTF last weekend. 21st, not bad at all. I think that's awesome.
We did better than Colonel Sanders.
Yeah. So.
There were 450 teams. I feel like we did better on this one than the week prior. Got more challenges done at least. Some of them were easy. Some of them were hard. Corbin, what do you think?
Yeah, the web ones are super easy. Yeah. Forensic ones were, not too hard either.
Okay. Quick little homework for you for next week. So get the VM working. We should be pushing out a Kali VM, but if you want to get an offline version, that's probably going to work better for you. Probably have better resources allocated to it. And again, if you need help with anything, just message us. We're always around. So, and then DevSec and Programming Club, this is what they're going to be covering tomorrow and next week. So if you want to get more programming work as far as sorting stuff and intro to networking, they're going to be covering that. So that'll definitely help you as we move on through the semester. I know we're kind of covering very basic things right now and not really doing many labs, but it'll definitely start going in the next couple weeks. So Chris, you want to talk about some stuff?
Alright, sweet. So let's talk about some current events. I actually threw a couple of them in there since we have a lab, so I'm not going to try to go super in-depth into them. But the first one, there were a bunch of articles that were posted that my RSS feeds kind of gifted to me, and it was about GPS default passwords. So these were for devices like you might put on Fido and send them off into the park or something, or if your grandparents get lost a lot, maybe you put a GPS necklace on your, I don't know. So GPS devices to just track kids, runaway grandparents, pets. And if you haven't taken Kyle's cellular mobile class, there's something called an IMEI number, which is kind of like, I'll probably get yelled at, but I'll equate it to like a MAC address. It's basically a hard number that refers to that specific device. And so the IDs when communicating with these, because a lot of these will also actually be connected to like a cellular network. And so that was the specific case with these. But the IDs for those are based on those IMEI numbers, and the data that they transmitted was in plain text. And the commands that it runs, like the software on there, is actually super reversible. So there were some proof of concepts for making Fido look like he was in Antarctica or something. So you can actually, there was some pretty scary stuff, and then there were also some proof of concepts for like, oh, well, we could send text messages from your dog's collar and some interesting stuff like that. So it was kind of cool. This was a big one. I think this was announced at DerbyCon. Bluekeep. How many people haven't heard of Bluekeep? Okay, it's a decent amount. So do you guys know what remote desktop is? Have you heard of that? It's kind of like a way to, like if your parents need help at home, you can set it up to connect in and help them with their computer. Something along those lines, but it's baked into Windows. But Bluekeep was a big deal. It allows some remote code execution. And it was, it's been around a little bit, but there was a Metasploit module, and we're actually going to talk about Metasploit today, so it'll become a little more useful to you guys knowing what Metasploit is instead of me just spouting off words. But so that'll become more useful to you. There's a module so you can basically type a couple things and then press enter and exploit a computer. It was kind of cool. And it's a 2019 CVE, so happened this year, so it's kind of a scary deal. And there's a couple more that I want to talk about also. So there were some more 2019 ones that were released. There was one for WinSock, which is just kind of their drivers that were vulnerable there. There was a EOP, which is an elevation of privilege for the Windows Common Log File System. Some of these are really funky, so you'd have to read into them if you were curious. And then there was another one for RDP, which is this 1290/1291, for example. And so a CVE is a is it currently vulnerable? Jeez, I can't talk.
I can't remember.
Something vulnerable
Database.
exploit.
With a lot of stuff.
Well, yes, yeah. So there's a. If you go to.
Common vulnerabilities and exposures.
Yeah, there you go. Common vulnerabilities and exposures. So if you go to exploit, I think it's, exploit-db. This has a list of all of them. And so then they're kind of organized. They'll have these like long CVE numbers. So like these ones, it describes like what year, and then Mac, thank you. But there's a whole bunch of them in here. So like this one's an interesting one. Whoa, that's not the same on my Mac. Okay, so the E1 Flexi Authentication Bypass. I don't know what that is. You can click in there and it'll have, like, here's some proof of concept code that someone wrote. So you can go through and try to figure out what that is. And it's written in Python, so it should be legible to the naked eye. Now that I've opened a bunch of tabs on Kyle's computer. So for that one, it's kind of interesting because in order to use it, you actually have to get someone to connect to your malicious server. So it's an outward sort of thing. So social engineering would be a way that you'd have to use it. That one's a little funky. It's kind of RDP setup uses like channels and stuff. I'm not going to get into it actually because not like a lot of people know what. Anyways, we'll move on from that one. So here's another one for people that know a little bit more about like reverse engineering and stuff, or maybe someone wants to get into doing some of that. So Microsoft Edge started an insider bounty program. I thought it'd be cool to mention it. So you can kind of read about this, or if you're interested in doing bounties, I know there are a couple of people in here that do bounty programs and stuff a lot. This is one that you might want to check into, but I'll just throw that up there. Boom. And then I just want to open the floor. Does anybody have anything that they thought was neat that they read in the news that they just want to throw out?
There was a new Android vulnerability. You could basically spoof SMS messages from like the operator side and cause someone's phone to install a proxy. So you can basically, without user interaction, cause someone's phone to install your server as their proxy. So that was pretty neat. That's another 0 day. So,
Nice.
And if you find 0 days, go to Zerodium. But it's just my 2 cents. Android is more valuable than iOS now, so.
It's because of the iPhone being released. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, probably. And there's more things they're building on Android that they probably shouldn't be, but.
Yeah, and all of us are poor, so that's another thing. So. Okay, let's see the next thing. Oh yeah, here's another good thing. So I thought that it'd be cool to mention some like lingo, because for new people or freshmen or just, I guess I miss lingo. Like I couldn't remember what CV stood for tonight, so I thought I'd throw some basic ones up there. So for example, a lot of times with hacking, people will describe it as white hat, black hat, and gray hat hacking. Does anybody know what a white hat hacker is? I'm just kidding. To the room, yeah. Go ahead, yeah. Yep.
White hacker is someone who follows the rules of the law or your contract to the letter without overstepping their boundaries.
Boom. Perfect. Better than I could say. That's why I picked you. Okay. Does anybody know what a black hat hacker would be? Maybe on the other end of the spectrum? Yeah.
Criminal.
Yeah, heck yeah. That's a good way to describe it. Well, Q's kind of like, I was a black hat hacker. No. Do you have something to add? Maybe like criminal, but maybe like I'm attacking another country to protect my country. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. What about gray hat hackers? Anybody have an idea there?
Going by some ethical code a lot of the time of like, well, this company's in the wrong, so I'm going to deface their website.
Yeah, there you go. So that's a fun thing. Another thing that you'll hear us say like all the stinking time, like you'll like if you're sitting in a room full of hackers and they're working on something, you're going to hear the word shell. So what we're referring to there is we're talking about like having a command line connection to some computer or some system that we're operating on. So tonight, I guarantee you'll catch Kyle or one of us saying shell actually like 800 times. So, and then of course to go along with that, we have popping shells or getting a shell, which just means like we now have command line access to something. If you're like from the 60s, no, don't tell any of the professors I said that. But if you hear like raining shells, then they're probably a really old hacker. But that's something that people say too. We'll also sometimes do leet speak. That's kind of like a joke sometimes. So often you'll see us use port 1337 or port 313373, I guess, just because it spells leet and elite. So you like flip the numbers and stuff. So that's something fun. So you might catch jokes sometimes if you're like reading news articles or you see us like doing stuff with ports and we don't bring it up. So that's the thing. And then, I guess I put the word fishing on there. Has anybody ever gone fishing before? Yeah, caught a fish. Yeah. So this type of fishing is with the PH. It's a little different from the F fishing where you kind of go sit by a lake or a river and you stare at a stick and you hope you get something. I'm kidding. I actually like fishing a lot. So this is like, I'm going to send, I actually used this word earlier. So I'm going to send like an email or something to someone. That's a good example of phishing. And I'm going to try to get them to click a link or something along those lines. Or maybe some phone calls, but could be considered that. So, whoa, hello there. I guess I'll just move the text box. I'm just going to leave it there. So lab time. So if you flip over to your IA lab, and Kyle is conveniently using the Flash interface. I know some people like to use it still. I do also sometimes. So mine is named Kyle is nice, but that's because we had to re-add it quickly. Yours will be named, what was it, OffSec Intro to Offensive Tools, or if you had to add it last minute. That was probably just because you weren't on the email list yet. So yours will be named whatever you named it. I'm going to click open just to get on in there. And we're going to operate from, so you can see from here, but if you're an actual attacker, you're not going to actually be able to see. We have 3 machines operating on like a network. And you can think of these as like, I don't know if you can see the, like right above where the mouse is. This like a little line. This is basically like we just plug them into each other. That's kind of what that's symbolizing. And so then each of these machines, we've actually went through and we've given them a specific address. So we're going to refer to that as an IP address. You can kind of think of it as like an apartment complex. I'm going to steal Kyle's analogy because I like it a lot more than mine. So if you got an apartment complex so your public IP would kind of be like the overall address of that apartment complex. And then inside, like within that apartment complex, you have the different apartment numbers. So apartment 1, apartment 2, apartment 3, and so on and so forth. So our IP addresses are just those apartment names. And we'll have an IP for Metasploit and an IP for the nice XP machine that we're going to play with. So for me, it's really easy to open a web interface because I just hit it. But is it going to auto-sign me in if I do this?
Yeah, I'll kick you out of Flash, I think, but that's fine.
So I was just going to show, because this one's a little goofy. So for the projects, click VApps over here on the side, and you should you won't see Kyle is nice. That would be weird if you did. To get in there, you'll click Details. And then we're going to use the Kali Linux machine. So you'll click on just the triple dot there to get the drop-down menu. And we're going to do Launch Web Console. That's the same thing as us just clicking like once in the Flash interface. Might be a reason why people like the Flash interface still. But so has everyone opened up their machine yet? Got a connection? I'm trying to go a little slow here. This might be hard to see. That's the same size. We'll use this one because it's centered.
Zoom in on the overall window.
I'll have to cheat and use this.
Command-Shift.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
Command-Shift lens.
There we go. All right. So this is my computer. So the username for the default installation of Kali is going to be root. And I don't think the password's Tor. Oh, it is right now. Okay, so the default password on here is Tor. Sometimes in the IA lab, it'll be set to password1 exclamation point. We refer to it as password1 bang sometimes. But root and Tor will get you in. It's just root backwards for the password. And then Linux is going to do the Linux things. Nice. And where we're going to live and where I spend like 60 to 90% of my life on my personal computer is this little black icon right here. This is called the terminal. And if you're new to DSU, by the time you graduate, you're going to be like, oh, opening a terminal is normal. This is like when you see the hacker movies and they're all of a sudden like, they open something up out of nowhere. Yeah. Oh, okay. Somebody want to... I gotta see. Oh, there we go. I'm gonna see if I can zoom mine in a little bit. Boop. Oh, come here. Oh, there it is. Is that big enough? Yeah, that's plenty big, I think.
Nmap is about to be very angry with its output.
Yeah, we're going to do... I think that's big enough.
Yeah.
Can anybody not read the text on there? I know it's red, too, so that's not helpful. But so the first thing that we're going to do is an attacker. And this is kind of stage one for everything. Tonight we're going to talk a lot about, like, reconnaissance. Well, maybe not a lot, just a little bit at least. So does anybody, can you just define what reconnaissance is? Or recon, as it's shortened often? Yeah. Well, just in general. Yeah. Exactly. So our recon is just going to be us kind of being like, oh, hey, what's up over there? And then behind the scenes, we'll be thinking like, so they've got this going on. How can I like exploit that? It's kind of like if you have a neighbor that you don't like and their dog comes over all the time and you're like, how could I stop that dog? My neighbor doesn't have a dog, so there's an awesome tool that comes installed on Kali Linux, which is the machine that we're using. If you went to DefSec, it's one of those flavors that Peter showed you. It's based on Debian. It's got a bunch of security tools pre-installed for you, and Nmap is one of them. So we're going to use this command called Nmap. This is going to be kind of our network scanner. It's how we're going to check to see if people are living at other apartments in our network and what they're doing at their apartments. And there are a ton of options for Nmap. For a lot of command line arguments, is what we'll call them. They'll often start with like a dash, and then we'll have we'll put like a letter or something after it, and then we'll move on and do another one. So for our case tonight, we're just going to do some really basic Nmaps information. And I'm going to show you this really quick first. So for not every, but pretty much all tools on like Kali, for example, there's something called a manual page. So oftentimes in the industry, people will be like, oh, just Google it. Like, well, I guess anywhere, people just Google it. For this, like, this is another cool feature of Linux where you don't necessarily have to Google it because you can type man and then the command that you want to get a manual for. And it's going to actually tell me everything I need to know about Nmap. So if you read this, then kudos to you, because I have not read this. It's a lot of information. But they have all of the command arguments in here that you can give it, or the command line options. You just have to trust me for the ones I'm using. So we're going to run Nmap. And the first thing that we want to know, we should probably figure out what our IP is. Oh, 10.0.0. Oh, just scan the whole network. Okay, we'll do that. So we're gonna do Nmap, and we're going to see if we can figure out, like, that's a capital O. So the capital O, what that's gonna do is it's gonna do, Tyler's like, why are you doing that? We're just gonna put it in there because it's fun. So the capital O is gonna do, it's gonna attempt to do like host detection. So it'll attempt to be like, that's Windows, that's Windows, or like that's Linux, blah blah blah, like information about it. So we'll just throw that one on there. We want to get done before like midnight, so we're gonna add TAC T4. So that just specifies how fast we want to do the scan. So for this, we're just gonna be like reckless. Like we're gonna be like, give me information, and you'll like throw just packets and cyber at the machines that you're attacking. So T4 is like the fastest I would recommend. I think there's a T5, but I think it's unstable, so we're not going to do that. So we'll do TAC T4, and then we're also going to do -SV. Does anybody know what -SV does? Yep.
And versions of those services.
So it's going to scan for the service and the version of the services that are running. Yeah.
So if you're doing TAC-O and TAC-SV, why aren't you doing TAC-A?
So we're not going to do TAC-O. We're just going to do TAC-SV now. That's a good point, I guess. See, I wasn't a professional pen tester, so I don't know all the secrets.
All washed up, doesn't matter.
All right, so you can leave the TAC-O on there, whatever, or just take it off like I'm doing. So we're going to do -SV, and then, let's see, what else am I missing? Oh, there's also options like, because when you scan, it's going to spit a bunch of stuff to the screen. So if you do -lowercase o, capital A, it's going to output like, I think it's like 3 or 4 different files. 3 files, yeah, because Gnmap, Nmap, and XML. Yeah, so it'll output all 3 of those. It's just different variations of like, this is what I found. And then we'll give it a name, so like, we'll just name it 1337. I'll just name the files, all that. And it'll add special file extensions for us. So that's gonna output from our scan, and then we're gonna do, I think we got everything I want. So now we're gonna specify the address, like what apartments we want to attack. One of those. Or we could just put the specific addresses so it's faster. We'll just do this. So just trust me on that one. That's an IP address if you don't know what that is. They'll talk about it at DefSec next week. So if you put that exactly, so 10.0.0.0/24. And we should be good to press enter on this now. Yeah.
Can you explain what the /24 at the end is doing?
Yeah, so that one is just kind of, oh, that makes it a little funky. So the /24 refers to, I don't know if we want to get into this tonight.
I can. The /24 basically says what part of the IP he put up there is a network and what part of it is a specific host. So by putting the /24, he's basically saying there are 254 hosts underneath that network that he specified. So Nmap is going to try and hit 10.0.0.1, 10.0.0.2, 10.0.0.3. And it'll sit there and it's going to cycle all the way up to 254.
So this, so this case is just going to count up in that last position. And the reason why I know that their machine's only on there is because we made the network, so we cheated a little bit there. Normally you would just scan the whole network regardless, and we would also do, like I would figure out, that's really small, but I would figure out what my IP is, so I'm at .25, so then I could also do like, nah, it's not Windows. So if I do this, then there's more information for me. Like I can see that the network itself is only using that last one, so I know that I can do the /24. And then we don't have a gateway, so It's not helpful, but how much longer do we have? Oh, it's almost done. Nice. So far you can see, if you press enter, or I think like pretty much any other key, it'll tell you like how far along it is. So for us, it says that it found 2 hosts, and it's checking the services out. That's our SV option. It must really be checking one of the services out.
I mean, it is Metasploitable too, so it's like, what?
Yeah, one of the machines that we put on the network is very vulnerable. Like, it was made specifically for people to practice attacking. Boop.
Has it output anything to the files yet? You should be able to Control Shift T because Mac, it doesn't get angry.
Yeah, I found some still. Let's look at the. Oh, perfect. This is enough stuff, I think, for us to start.
Yeah, that's good.
Do you want to take over from here? Kyle's going to do the actual hacking. Oh, it finished now.
Alright, cool. So now we can see kind of what's going on in this network. I'm just going to reload that in case anything more got added. So here we can see just a bunch of info about this one host that it found, because it's saying Nmap scan report for 10.0.0.50. So we know that IP address has these following things on it. One of the first ones I'm seeing is it has this service called FTP on it, which is really, really fun to play around with. And because of Chris's flags, he has all sorts of other stuff showing up here. So it's telling us the actual version of this. So I'm going to start here looking at VSF TPD 2.3.4 on this IP address. And I'm just going to leave this up, open up a new terminal so that I can refer back to that, because it's always really nice, and otherwise you're constantly like flipping between stuff, closing things, opening them back up. So I'm going to be using Metasploit, and how I open that is by typing MSF console and hitting enter. If you don't want it to like do a bunch of weird banner stuff, you can put TAC-Q, and then it's not as annoying. And this might take a little bit to start up. It's going to freak out about a database because I didn't type MSFDB in it. It's fine. You can just ignore that. All right. So now I'm within Metasploit. You can see that now it says MSF5, whereas when I'm in a normal terminal over here, it's root at Kali. So I'm in a completely different prompt. Normal Linux stuff isn't the same while I'm within this MSF5 thing. So I said I was going to check out VSF TPD 2.3.4. I'm going to keep turning this down because you guys can hear me twice. Okay, we should be good. So I'm going to check out VSF TPD 2.3.4. I've identified, hey, that person's my target. I want to launch a thing at them. I'm going to search what they've got. Over in Metasploit, I can just type search whatever I want to look for, and oh my gosh. Because the font is tiny, it's going to look really, really gross. And if you like modify your display and make it a lot bigger, this looks way less terrible. But I can see here for number 4, it's giving me this path of exploit Unix VSF TPD 2.3.4 backdoor. It says that it has an excellent chance of working and is just kind of a good thing to play around with. So I'm going to hit Control-Shift-C on my keyboard. That should copy what I have highlighted in my terminal to my clipboard. So I'm highlighting that path if my terminal doesn't feel like dying.
Just type use for.
You can just do use for.
Yep.
Real pen tester back there. I think I might.
Probably out like 2 months ago or 3 months ago.
Really? Is that like MSF5? Cool. I'm just reopening this because something weird went down. Now everything's highlighted. That's great. I'm going to try this use for thing. That should work. Okay, I'm going to do the search again. And I'll just highlight it, copy it over. So this is actually a path to an exploit. Something that I should say is that Metasploit isn't just about like, I'm going to go exploit a target box. You can do scanning and you can do all sorts of post-exploitation. Today we're just going to get into the box. So if I say use, and I give it that path, which hopefully everyone has, exploit Unix FTP VSFTPD 234 backdoor. Now my prompt changed. It's actually telling me that I am within this specific exploit. So it has parentheses. I'm in an exploit mode. I could be in auxiliary, I could be in post, but right now I'm in exploit. Here's the specific exploit that it's using. Now, I need to configure some stuff if I want to actually like throw this at a computer. So I can look at the options. And now there's not really much here because there's some other info that we need. One of the first things that we want to set is our payload, what we actually want the remote computer to execute. I'm just going to hit tab twice to see what we have, and VSFTPD only has one payload, which is getting like line continued, but it's cmd/unix/interact. So if I do set payload, that thing, then it kind of confirms here your payload variable has been set to this. Now if I type options again, there's some more stuff. Oh, I guess that doesn't even have any options. So some Metasploit terminology, they use this thing called rhosts. That just means the remote host that you're trying to attack. You'll also see lhost. That's the IP of the person who's listening and trying to catch whatever shell gets popped. I'll throw that out there, like you said I would. So that can, most of the time, be your computer. Here I'm going to just set rhosts. And now we need an IP. I have that IP right here. It's 10.0.0.50. So I have that set. I'm not sure if there's any other options I have to set. So I'm just going to say YOLO and type run. And now it's saying all sorts of weird stuff. Command shell session 1 opened. So that means we're actually on this remote computer and we can start running some commands if we want. So one of the most common commands, you're going to find it everywhere on every Linux system, is the command ls. And you can see here it's showing me all the files that are on this system. So that means I am actually on it. If I type who am I, it tells me I'm root. So I have this computer completely owned. I can do whatever to it. I can start just doing some crazy, crazy things. So did everyone who's trying to follow along get there? Or is anyone like lost? So this is great. We have a shell. We can do all sorts of cool things from here. Next week, we're going to cover more of what we can do with these shells. But for now, I'm going to turn it over to everyone else. There's another box in our little network that we've got. I hope it showed up here. It did. So we have an IP 10.0.0.100, and it looks like it's a Windows box. You see this RPC, Windows XP. We know there's another Windows XP box. So this IP address is actually that. So now what I want everyone to do is go and exploit that thing. I'm giving you a little bit of info so you can start doing some digging. I gave you a specific Microsoft vulnerability, MS08067, that for sure that XP box is vulnerable to. We set our payload before, so use that one. It's just more stable. And your rhosts value is going to be that 10.0.0.100. You're probably going, no, you won't have to set lhosts. So everyone just gets to go ahead, try and get on that XP box. And next week, we're going to be talking more about what we do once we're actually in shells. I should say, if you are in here, You can hit Control Z, and it'll ask you if you want to background a session. You can say Y and hit Enter, and now you're back in Metasploit. So, however long people want to stay around here, I think we're good to just go around, help people, and let's try and make it rain some shells. So, yeah, I think, is that all we got? Anything else? Cool. Get hacking.